Well, as we are sitting here at LTV on this beautiful Thursday afternoon, May 11th, year 2023, here with the Hello Hello Show. My name is Haim Mizrahi, continuing with the tradition of public access and the tradition of the Hello Hello Show that's been on the air since 1980. And uh, the beauty of that sense of continuation and perseverance. Of course, not to fail to mention the contribution by Fraser Dougherty, Francis Ann, and the likes of you out there, and make it your business to enhance and fortify the concept of public access. Of course, there's a much to be said about the choices that are available in the hands of those that are willing to contribute and create, and to be a, a part of that concept that speaks for openness and freedom and kind of endless amount of improvisation. And if you find that your heart is in the right place, you will be overwhelmed by the choices available. And on it, all in all, being presented as you are the presenter himself or herself, being presented, therefore, with the wonderful, sweet, lovely, loving consequences of the action of the artistic attempt. And that for some reason, if there's an artistic attempt that's taking place, it's always kind of ending up with this incredible desire to share and to be spread and to be given and to. So I went to my friend. I had a conversation, and I said, there was a session that was talking about, and I said, you don't know how much I prepared for this session. And let's just say that let's just say I was speaking of a musical instrument. You know how much I prepared with this musical instrument for this session. Uh, um, I rehearsed 3 times with a total amount of time, which was 17 minutes. So the division was like 5, 12, and 3 minutes each session. 5 each session, 12 each session 3, and then you are like um, overwhelmed by the implications of this short visits that you introduce yourself into the potential visit itself, i.e., kind of showing yourself into the space of the the already achieved matter. In this case, it would be like the composition is written and someone just slip a piece of paper under the table, and then you realize it's the whole composition. All is left is really play it to interpret your own feelings and reservations and dynamics and all that. So, um, so suddenly picking randomly is actually a good scenario for the surprise that always stalls and takes its time. That surprise that serves as a refreshing aspect of the much challenging and demanding process through which ideas got to be fresh, change, uh, imminent, and then of course overdrive, highly recommended. Um, it's interesting that any and every most religions in the world, at least if we speak of Christianity and Islam and Judaism, there's always some kind of a potential deadly planet-ending war, fully prescribed in one of the books that's available to each religion, and there's a whole long process of exercising the process of adaptation to something terrible that is spells misery and pain and fear. I mean, it's just like, if you were to face a baby and you want to make the baby laugh and entertain. The baby is always on the edge of either being extremely happy and laughing and whatnot, or extremely terrified. No explanations are available, nor they are requested by those who are seasoned in the process of giving life, acquiring knowledge for improvements, structural improvements for the most part, thinking that you have a lot to say over that which you have really pretty much nothing to say. Well, uh, the nothing and the opposite, and the opposite and the nothing. It's just kind of sharing the same kind of evaluation of quantity per location, and positioning the idea in a smart way so it will meet not necessarily the perfect match that will give us this click where the latch is arriving to its final destination and we need to rejoice, but then we realize actually that it's um, too much of a short notice, and those who invested so much in the process, they need it. They didn't notice ahead of time, for some very sophisticated reasons, so they can brush up on the sense of brushing up, um, exiting through the roughness of that arrow pointing to that which is extremely familiar to you, but still nevertheless seems to be needed and necessary in order to evaluate the potential cluster that can be prevented and therefore spared from us, and of course spared so we can not have to unnecessarily face a situation or reality where energy is gonna go to waste. I always dread this sentence. I think in my late teenagehood, and right after I finished the army when I was 21, 22, it was like almost like a second teenagehood. It was really actually potentially very kind of stupid. I felt that being that age and with all the enlightenment and the showing the world you're talented and good looking and powerful and inventful and creative and whatnot, still nevertheless it's um, the level of that which is naive that takes place is much more powerful than the reasonable desires, the reasonable connotations, the reasonable alerts, the reasonable um, pinpointing, the reasonable that which is drawn out of that which is logical and common sense. And this is something that I never had a problem thinking otherwise. Meaning, as I was growing up until this point, I always think I have an understanding of that which is logic and that which derived from common sense is because it just kind of feels right. And even though yes, there's always can be a debate, but if you know me, you would know I want to have nothing to do with any debates. You debate, and then you realize you're short. And then you realize you're short. You realize how come you're short if you had nothing to really get to a point where you say it will be taken from what. So I'm short from the nothing that I had to begin with, because the something that I had was already kind of sucked into the future that is just needs it as a given. So it was there, but it wasn't there. It came there, it came through there, and it passed, and it went on to wherever, and it wasn't even known to the vessel that this kind of foreign substance went through it, and kind of in order to get to, in order to make the world continue to go around and around and around and function this way or that way, and somehow, and on and on. Yeah. So you really know better than to second guess, because second guessing and all that follows, and and all that led to is um, it just kind of comes with a package, uh, and and for me that was like, okay, that package has some wonderful, delicious, rare ingredients, in a world where everything is so limiting, because someone will come to you and tell you it's coming, something is coming, someone is coming, and it's going to be ugly, or it's going to be challenging, and you think about all these maneuvering of letters and numbers, and you see the canvas, and you see that it actually has like a subdivision where it's a liquidation, and soft and yielding, and you don't seem to want or to find yourself questioning, like second guessing, like, not that, it's very tricky how you, between being intentional, between being intentional and that which is required, intentionness and of course attention. um, so it gives birth to something that is fascinating, but you don't even know, you don't quite know why, but something new because you sense it. And then the process of trying to find out what just happened, what is the nature of this new beast, and then realizing how fast everything goes by, and then need to find a way to be able to get something that is vital and essential, and from the proper layer of that substance thing. It's like a moment in time, which equals the matter, and the matter with our ability to dress it up with any kind of profile we want or we choose to. That and that profile really can be just like you and I, and we're chilling and we're not, and we're happy and we're not, and we're well-to-do and we're not, and we're rich and we're not, and we're capable and we're not, and we're strong and we're not, and we're willing and we're not, and we're active and we're not, and we're hoping and we're not, and we're dreaming and we're not, and we're yielding and we're not, and we're resisting and we're not, and we are, and who we are, and then we're not, and then we know about that we are and we're not, and we know that we are not, and we are. So man, you can go through that, and that can sound like madness, but actually, if you use it in the name of those prior ancient skeleton, shield, some kind of a basic, simple structure that yielded itself in order to be used as it's going to be seen fit to, and then it's you realize down the road, 35 layers ahead, that extra one in the beginning with the kind of attitude that took place is what saved the day 11 years later. I remember bringing close to my heart when I was with the sticks and the drums. I was like, and it was like so many people tried to teach me that I need to sit in a certain way, and of course there's got to be style. This, what's better for you, for the actual act of drumming, of percussion, of counting, of hitting, of hands, sticks, relationship, bad, good, correct, incorrect, so it's like every time they try, and I started with one of the greatest, at least in 1983, with Kenwood Denard, Spanish Harlem. I think it was the 101st and first, once a week for I don't know that many months, 6, 7, 8 months. Used to travel once a week to Spanish Harlem with Kenwood Denard. So he wants to tell you that the posture yields results that otherwise are kind of nowhere to be found. I don't know if I should say nowhere to be found, no, doomed to fail. Um, and then, of course, that affected me because I wanted to do it right. But then I realized every time I wanted to sit right, correct, it just killed me. I just felt pain and unease and all this. And all I wanted to do is do this and do this. It just felt good. But then when I made decisions, other decisions in the same kind of group of highways and avenues, suddenly the process of realization was expedited because it had prior mentioning of attempts in the not too distant past that you forgot all about, but you attempted. And you found yourself in this, the proximity of it, and that was recorded in their computers, and so suddenly you're back a full cycle, and that computer will never forget you. So you're getting some breaks and some privileges due to that, which is always a good thing. Then you realize for some reason winning the lottery, meaning really clicking with certain things that bring you into a higher entity instantly. It's not even instant. It's like it was never anything other than that. And that, when later on, you also realize that you have an ability to slow down, to stay longer, and maybe to go back, revisit, a lot of things. And you realize that all this greatness is due to trivial things that you do. That you really want to play the drums, you really want to write poetry, you really, you really want to go through this kind of block of society that will not yield to you if you were to declare in the piazza that you have your poetry ready to be read and you want the crowd to, or to expect to expect yearning and desire of the mass that wants to hear poetry and understand, coming out of this understanding of that importance, how um, 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 accountability is really something that wasn't unusual. The demand for accountability, the understanding of accountability, where you're coming from, where you're going to, what is it that potentially will wait you and maybe will trick you and trip you, and so you're kind of ready. You're ready because your level of conviction, that is, of course, stored in your photographic memory because it's something that you have achieved, and you choose to carry with you, so you can just literally, even though if you remember it by heart, you'll be able to kind of you know pull it out and say, well, here's the original, here's the original document. So I think that when you find yourself, especially if you're lucky enough to realize when you're like between 19 and 22, between 18 and 21, certain countries like where we live, you go to college. It's like at least you want to think you can, you plan, maybe your parents made it easier, maybe you get financial aid, maybe this. Mostly you would know what you want to do, how you start at least, but mostly those who know are those who don't know, and they chose something anyway. But it doesn't matter. There's just kind of this attitude, or there's this, uh, whatever it is that you have to find yourself. Some countries between 18 and 21, you go to the army, and then you think about 21, 24, 21, 24, 21, 25. So by 25, you want to go to college, then you have to know what you want to do. But there was no easy way to come to grips with that which you decided or which Mother Nature bestowed upon you, and whether you have a choice or not, it's just like living it, or at least the journey towards it. So let's just say that you want to say, I want to acknowledge that I that level of greatness and perfection and so much more that I aim to achieve. I know deep down inside me that I will just pretty much in this lifetime most probably will not achieve that. Not most probably. I will not achieve that. I will be a good, whatever it is that I'm talking about, honest, decent, good musician, play the piano, play the drums. So then you say, okay, because I want it to be a part of me for my entire life, I will adapt an attitude that doesn't have to answer to any entity that will hold you liable for accountability, because it's you, yourself, and you. That's the beauty of it. With the he himself and he, she herself and she, they themselves and they, and you yourself and you, and me myself and I, it's all absolutely the same. It's the same thing. Actually, it's the one inside the shadow. No, it's the one as it serves as a shadow that's being carried behind it, and that shadow is like the cape that drags as it kind of walks through the whatever surface, but it certainly creates dust, and suddenly the task of holding that cape is not pleasant so much any longer, realizing that dust, so you cannot just sit there and imagine that it's royal dust, so therefore it's royal dust. And so you realize that the detachment in an early stage where you will find yourself actually saying, now I need to understand what is the nature of freedom that is uh, playing a tune on both levels of academia and kind of self exploration slash interpretation slash um, um, accumulative, manipulative, um, uh, inspirational, and also fairly lame. And the accepting with even excitement and embracing with even excitement and gathering with the and even understanding of its important role and so even if you don't know really what it's all about when it comes to its nature, you know that brushing with this kind of rough primitive royalties is something that's going to do you good. Something is going to leave behind something that you will never have a second chance to acquire. So you know that you can always kind of shake it and get rid of it if you don't like it, but most probably that won't be the case in the future. So I went into the zone where I would look at you out there, my friends of many years, creative painters, poets, and just philosophically oriented with a touch of street smarts, and if I speak of all that, and if it's a fact of in my life, that means I need to now approach you and tell you about the the rhythm of the steps rather than just so far just the steps. Now I tell you, this is the fashion through which I find myself hopping through a certain area that is under discussion, exhibit A, so to speak. And there's a basic understanding to begin with, and you add into some shared stage that all ends except because each one of them consider this grounds that they're find themselves in as available, familiar, and acceptable. So all equally and evenly. So you have your own capacity to create that story and whatever it is that follows that. The scenario, the statement, the feelings, the reservations, the coming from, the sturdy now and the ongoing into the the spearheadedness of the unknown, i.e., the future, and so forth, and so more and so forth, and then you really becoming that journey, going back to square one, and realizing that it is going back to square one because the one is everywhere. And for some reason, it doesn't need any zero to survive. It's just like the one is everywhere. And because you are experiencing at that particular moment, going back to square one, why is it that I'm going back to square one? And I'm reminded that I need a reminder, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then you, so it's like, how do you count it? How do you do that if you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 17, and bring into the equation even more so through syncopation? What is the challenge that comes alongside the um, I don't know. How can I describe it? Like a severe test, like a challenging, like a strong-headed dispute, But nothing wrong is present, and there's no sensation of hostility or anything. It's just awkwardness. It's just like sometimes I think about, speaking of religion, Yeah, well, I'd like to position myself in a point where I will be on the line that everyone is standing when they want to achieve a truce. Like, okay, whatever it is, can we stop now for a short while, for a long while? So I happen to feel like I almost anchored on this line as my place of residence, while people are just coming through it, into it, and out of it, and crisscrossing, and I don't feel the shake and the unease. I don't feel the implication of what's supposed to shake now due to that, and something's supposed to. But for some reason, you find yourself that you're actually in such a high level anyway to begin with, just from being adamant in doing the thing that you're involved in doing, and you keep on doing it. Then you realize that most of the success that comes from engaging in that, it depends on the fact of how much you do it, how often you do it, and you do it a lot, and you do it very often. So you're quite sure it's just a matter of time before you always feel good about it, but it's just a matter of time before you really get that nice, wonderful, delicate uppercut, and it doesn't hurt, but you feel drowsy because you're supposed to. You were just hit by a nice, strong impact uppercut. But deep inside you, you're coming out of it. That means, okay, I tasted it. I don't think I want to go there again. So you proceed with caution, even though it sounds so cliche. Oh my God, I feel like you proceed with caution, and you tell yourself, all of you agree, and all of you are just a part of the speaking of that it's right, and what's right is right, and the usage of this right to make right. And then there's someone who says, we got to proceed with caution. And don't even ask me why. It's because it's the right thing, And yeah, you know what? Sometimes you don't need to do that because there are 20 people in the room and there's a candidate, and they all say, we got our candidate. Things like that happen, but it happens 1 out of 13 trillion or something. Yes, but you introduce to yourself the package that you yourself even you're not aware of what's inside it. It's like the day it's going to be put to use is the day that you're going to be um, present, and you planned it this way. So always a but in this spirit, I wanted to tell you. So sometimes I wanted to share that with you. That sometimes people are just like sit in the center of the room, and they dive into sadness and melancholia, and nothing really bad, nothing really bad, nothing really like, oh my God, I'm going to die. But they sit in the center of the room, and whether it's dark around them or not, there is darkness that takes over because they let it take over, and they feel like they are absolutely there, not there. Absolutely not there. Like, maybe it sounds crazy, but it's so I see that. I saw that more than once. And I could come to a person and say, look at me, for God's sake. Look at me. You don't have to look at me. You don't have to. Look at me, for God's sake. Look at me. You don't really have to. And then you want to take the chances that sometimes, and and it happened to me lately quite a few times, whereas before that it was a long time before someone came to me and said something. We're talking, and then it's like, wait, and then I stop and I say, wait a second, this person is like, he just said that and that and that and that, so much, so many brilliant things in such a short time. And you know that you don't need to treasure them because it's kind of part of who you are. It's so familiar. And so you like, all you feel is like the kick, like the sense of anticipated camaraderie. That is something that is not to be taken lightly or for granted because it doesn't show its face often enough. And so then, so then you're like in. I mean, now we're talking about you accepted in the perimeters of your own space. First of all, like whatever forces are active there, suddenly there was an opportunity, and there was a and it was seized. I mean, it was seized upon, and it was put to good use, and suddenly all the involved feel a little better about themselves. They feel more relaxed, and then more at ease with the fact that this controversial, extreme amount of knowledge is really not a big deal, and most of it is irrelevant. So we just kind of need to learn a new avenue through which we will say, you know what, we're in, but we're going to start at this stage right there. You put your finger, and then you just wait, and this is your cue. And you know best what it is that early on you don't have to engage in order to preserve your energy that is, by the way, irreplaceable. Anybody who tells you that you use the energy, then you find ways, there are a million ways, they say, to replenish or to retrieve your energy, your used energy. And it just doesn't exist. If you ask me why, I don't know. It just doesn't exist. It's gone, it's gone. This is one thing that's gone, is gone. So when you have a limited amount, sufficient maybe for a lifetime, calculated by the superpower, by the God Almighty, and that's it. So yeah. So then, when you belong to a group that believe in that and believe in the preemptive action and believe in putting into place a defense mechanism on top of the existing defense mechanism, nothing wrong with that. To secure even a greater slowdown of that which is spelled as, wasting your energy, as if you can just like do anything to replenish. No, it's just gone. And you know, and it hit me. I don't want, that's a long story, so I don't think I want to share that. But it happened. I remember when it happened. I remember what caused the change. But this, you, finding yourself. Well, I know. I don't really know many people. If you told any of them go through that, probably I do. But that kind of center potentially more, be it incredibly thick sweat like glue, like all this stuff, complexity. And anything can happen, This is very tricky situations where anything can happen. A lot of damage can be inflicted mentally and psychologically. If you're not lucky, then you're not, oh man, anyway. So I said, you know what, then remember when I had my project, 117 poems, told me the story how I went about writing them. So this is one out of 100, and it's called all of a sudden, and I thought maybe I can just, let me just mention that we're sitting here on May 11th, year 2023, Thursday afternoon here in the Hello Hello Show. My name is Haim Mizrahi, continuing with the tradition of public access, and of course the tradition of the Hello Hello Show. You're all invited for this coming Saturday, May 13th. May 13th, Saturday, at the LTV Studios in Greenscott, for an a group art exhibition open between 3 and 6. More than welcome. We have Michael McDowell, Steve Rum, Jonathan Morse, Chris Kerr, and Jody Gambino, and David Slater, and myself. And we'll be very happy to see you this coming Saturday, May 13th, between 3 and 6, 75 Industrial Road in Greenscott, and we'll see you there. So let me just close this session by this is really the early stages. I think it's in the early stages of the 100 poems. Let's go all of a sudden, yes. Okay, so that's what, 2 2. Wow, amazing. Okay, so this is it, yeah. Yeah, so it's so here, I'm just going to take it easy here like that. Greenhouse underground, pretty sight for the devil, grinding teeth, for heaven's sake, drip, oh drip, you science fiction whiz, travel secretly, now time has come and went to scramble the precise prediction, you are to live forever, with happy face buried in the mud of finger trails flirting with the brush against recovery. You son of a folding shrine, break doomed and cursed, be your thirst, you priest of jungle piercing. Oh, for real, I'm done. So long, short visit. Come to eat my soaked flesh at night under the cover of complacency. I will mourn later in the middle of the night. Come flash the route to a speakeasy under the cover of night. And the watchful eye of the iron fist roasted in top of the grazed leftovers, keeping a short distance away from the constant last opportunity to raise the grains of moments of despair. And you have the reflection hovering over the moment before, no more blending and singing to the bizarre and often grieving with dignity in a stiff neck, not allowing the thought pattern to second guess the outcome already known to the sufferers and bystanders. Last call came loaded this time, and I was found brick by brick elevating the horizon belonging to the grasshopper with delight. Soul-searching soulmate, soul-searching soulmate. Trash under weak layouts. It's one by one priceless, sense of green rivers spooky. I loaned to the storm, underground peeking, a stumble of fresh air against a brief encounter with mastery. Live and learn, it was said, placing a rumor and a bit of truth. But I was alone, and with a sudden appearance I caught my breath. It was a loner, when one was so much needed, and on the other line a simple gesture pleased a needy homeless. And it turned out it was not the homeless, it was rather the one who owns the entire block. Lucky for you. Lucky for you, you kept your mouth shut. Now you get to keep the roof over your head, secured, for a while longer at least. Masters brood with pride in the quiet of the night till it was all oxygen deprived, and love and care could only salvage the soul, the sensitive aspects of beings almighty, with pleasure and certainty to repeat fairness, blushing with a cool prediction, red, yellow, cheek rebound, storm fiction, fact, fool, brisk and soaked, and tryouts, strokes, dimples of disbelief, belly full of a suggestive new life. Black atoned, even if the solution is airtight, calling the soothe. It's over the hills, indoors. It's a surprise of thinking bright. Down the slope washed the little treasure, a stash thunder without the need to come to terms. It guides, finger swirls, wherewithal, prank of nature, and tip notion nesting in half-past tapered pinch, and turn to the brief recovery. Some dream at night, some brush through the night, some reveal a tendency to reply on the mortared web. In the center of hush and haste flips the coin of registered mentor. Out of the blue appears to soothe a calm for even treatment. And coil shrieks, and coil strikes over and over, brightening a dimple shining as if a reflex joins the thunder to brief a soil-penetrating glimpse into the inner laser of quiet magic with flapping. Taste the loneliness. It's cheap at this time of the year. Notes from a distance were not noticed. First time around, it's a disabling flush. Not securing self-lending, not spread-thin promises. Ever climbing to have the sweet moment on their side, and we find the presence to pray to the lifting of accountability. Some fitting season, it brings that finality too. Anyway, so this is like 7 out of 100 that are presented in one gesture, so to speak. So it's I just wanted to see something here before I continue. Okay, and we're gonna do this here. So I guess the best way to kind of approach it and kind of wrap it and say that when you speak of rhythm, let's say, of course, any musical instrument other than drums that has the qualities of rhythm and counting and accents and all that all comes together. So when you want to understand the weight, mass of the chunk of reality, this composition that's given to you. Interpretation is key, and there's no like certain interpretation, and at the end of it, you go check if you were right or wrong. It's just it acts and reacts like magic does. And it just takes place, and it's here and it's gone, and here maybe stays longer, but it's gone just as fast and as sudden as it appeared. So, so you want to understand what is the basic, and so even if you're like on top of the world, and suddenly you find yourself saying to yourself, I think I need to go back to basics. I want to be able to. And that's the discussion I had many times with my fellow musicians in Tel Aviv, and we were talking about the fact that um, uh, imagining we knew so many great musicians, all the way from I can't begin even to tell you that Chick Corea to Joe Zawinul to all the idea of Weather Report and Return to Forever, and the heritage of uh, the eruption of a desire on behalf of the talented musician to join or to just initiate and to create the grounds for changes and creations that were just too much for the world almost. We met most of them. A lot of them came to Israel to perform. I remember seeing Chikoria in the historic section of the old city of Jerusalem. Forget about it. It's like beyond. And I saw Joe Zawinul came with Omar Hakim and Wayne Shorter. Wayne Shorter, for God's sake, one of the best saxophone players of all times from the West Coast. Met them also, and just realizing the revolution playing live, the music, revolutionary music, and the revolution itself on two levels at the same time in front of our eyes. And we want to say, well, maybe I cannot play like you, but I understand exactly what you're doing. And so, really, that was like, I remember Joe Zawinul was in Jerusalem, and we wanted to, well, actually, we wanted to show him, but my friend Avi Adrian is a pianist, was the person that Joe Zawinul was greeted by Avi Adrian as a representative of the state of Israel, and then became great friends. And then one of the instances where they sat together with the band and some other friends and had some shots of vodka and were talking, and he was saying, "No, by the way, what have you been playing lately?" So he happened to have the CD. Actually, it was a cassette, I think, then, or CD that we recorded underground that particular day, or maybe the day before. So he puts the music on, and Joe Zawinul, one of the greatest musicians, really, over the last 100 years, just stopped everyone. He really wanted to hear it. What happened was, the fact that his ear told him that something different is happening there. And it's not like he wants to stop the world in order to hear what is it that is so incredible that caused him to react like this, because he already knew. He already knew that instant this told him the entire story. That's why masters like Joseph didn't need more than just that feeling, that occurrence that caused certain things to happen or take place. It's amazing. So you learn that from the masters. I learned from the masters that all these things that people worship and think is the best is just regular things that they create. It sounds very oversimplified, but it's just, but it's true. It's reality. So so what if? So we used to say, sit and contemplate philosophically. What if the drummer wakes up in the morning physically does certain things, whatever he does, but he doesn't do that. That morning he goes into his drum set and he's on his knees and he sniffs the drums and he looks at it and looks at it, goes around, stand and crawl and whatnot, and uh, something he's never done before, ever. And he's wondering. So then you realize it becomes evident that this particular moment is a moment of someone that is literally as if someone is looking at this instrument for the first time in their life. So that they're kind of questioning or searching for some meaning. What is this? So you take a master that begins to wonder for whatever reason in the world. It doesn't matter. The reason is not important. What matters is that this time and attitude mixed with it will take place. And so reconfiguring a truth that's not familiar to you from an existing instrument that happens to be your instrument that you know in a certain way will take place and will inevitably break through a lot of things quickly all at once, and there will be room to explore and to digest and to fine tune and to be introduced and to introduce and to create for quite a while. So you look at that and you say, if I want to approach the piano and I want to approach the piano and the first thing that comes my way to remind me that I'm doing something wrong is something that I realized actually right there when I tried to do something alternative, and that I always hated. I always hated. I always hated to be confronted by the the the, the police of the right way to do things, so to speak, musically speaking. Yeah? And you just realize for the first time in your life that you never really liked it, even though then you got the posture, and it's like someone taps on your back and you go like, yes, of course, that, and this is who you are. And um, and then you realize that it's actually more like finding your way and finding yourself actually approaching and facing something that is pretty powerful. How can you tell? Because you find out that you're not yourself around it. That never happens. Something that is around you and has so much aura to it that it robs you from your identity. Not in a bad way. You just suddenly it's like you have nothing to offer to yourself, but you still function. It's just that you're just a complete spectator. You become a complete spectator. And usually you might think it's not an appealing feeling to be restricted and not to be able to do other than what some kind of unknown force wants you to. But you know what? Sometimes it's if you know and identify it from its point of origin, then you realize it's not that. It's nothing that's alien. It's something that's familiar and it's been brushing against you in the past, and the rest is history. So you want you want to sing this tune, and you want to be a part of maybe fine tuning the tune, and you want to be contributing into the upgrading of that instrument, and so much more. When you get to a certain point, suddenly you actually arrive into a point where you can't add to it anymore. And it's just it found peace. I mean, it's kind of awkward perfection, that how when it manages to hold its own weight admirably, and you floating on that device pretty comfortably for whatever reason. But who cares to know about reasons when you see that level of shanti they have on their faces? Okay, rough trip, but face relaxed and some kind of weird level of being content and being kind of evenly spread, and what else? What more? What else? One needs really in the sense of that kind of, and you know that it never stops. Because this breakthrough that I just did, supposedly breakthrough that I just described to you, is a breakthrough that the nature, the forces themselves initiated, deciphered through, and so much more, and then we were like presented with some kind of a remnants of that encounter. Because we human beings, we cannot tolerate this kind of level of intensity. All of our inner organs will explode from it. It's like we're no match. But we are matched if we wisely use the final product, so to speak, that the evolutionary process has to offer to us. And since this stores in it an evolutionary process, and you don't really need to dig into too much because you just don't need to get to the bottom of it. So when you're talking to something like this, and it feels good to you, and you adapt it, I don't even want to think what's going to happen to you. You're going to go up. There's no step by steps, like 10 by 10, 20 by 20. And you know what? Sometimes, so more often than not, quantity is quality. In my book, it is. Especially if you're doing quality, you add quantity, then you have quantity of quality. Anyway, so what is it that you find at the end of that kind of one of many tests, adventures, teases, challenges, whatever, and so much more? You find a realistic offering of a process that is aware of who it is dealing with, because your presence and your aura has a lot to show for. And it's like, Mother Nature doesn't even argue with you if you have something to show for. It's not like, okay, it's not there. Yes, it is there. And Mother Nature takes it seriously. So then there's a part. Suddenly you consider as we're all partners, but suddenly you consider as a partner, as a viable partner. That kind of not availability, but just obviousness. You belong. We don't need to say we've been waiting for you for a long time, because we don't need to do that. You're here. We accept you. We acknowledge to you, and that's how we feel, and we're very immaculate and meticulous in how we go about describing that feeling. So, in addition to that, there's much to be said about maybe later on we'll talk about the future of the future, and that God Almighty of the mighty of the God Almighty, and so much more, which is not a game, but it's just like the ability that we were given to talk about it and to describe it and to move it and to travel fast with it is probably the top of the top. No AI can match that. But other than that, we're going to be here tomorrow as much as we were here yesterday, and as much as we're here this afternoon, Thursday afternoon, May 11th, year 2023, here with the Hello Hello Show. My name is Haim Mizrahi. Make it your business to show up May 13th, which is this coming Saturday, 3 to 6, at LTV Studios, 75 Industrial Road, for the opening reception exhibition of the group exhibition of 6 artists: Jonathan and Morris, David Slater, Chris Leclerc, Michael McDowell, Steve Ram, Jody Gambino, and myself, Haim Mizrahi. Keep up the good spirits. We'll see you sooner than later.